I have the Chronicle this morning. The big one says Gold Board solidifies Ghana external buffers. This is according to the Bank of Ghana. There's a picture of Johnson Isiama, the governor, on the front page. And the other story, I was following this yesterday. Otumfuo advises police to build public trust. I can't think of better advice.
Yeah, I have the Ghanaian Times, but before I give you the stories from the Ghanaian Times, you have a message from one of our listeners in Oyarifa about what we discussed yesterday about the noise pollution. The one who has a church right by his house disturbing him. He says, "Good morning, Joy SMS. I really appreciate your conversation yesterday. Yesterday, the assembly came here. They got the report. They've written stop work on the structure. But while it's okay to stop work on the structure, I want them to remove the unauthorized structures that the people have erected and prevent them from making noise." So, Lankwantanan Madina Assembly, you heard, you've responded. That's a good one, but do more for the people. Now I'll bring you the Ghanaian Times. Culture must work with the law. This is the Asante Hino Tumfuo 82 the second. He was speaking at yesterday's visit to the Ghana Police Service headquarters.
Historic visit.
Yes. Now GJA condemns assault on journalists at Kaswa, and they are demanding an apology, and they are demanding that the PRO for the Ghana National Fire Service be sacked as well. At the New Year school, we won't backslide in economic gain. President Mahama is assuring all of us, and Rubber Farmers Association of Ghana is rejecting calls for a total ban on raw rubber exports. Now, the council, which is also overseeing our Hajj preparations, has also closed the 2026 Hajj subscription, and that institution is the Pilgrims Affairs Office of Ghana. They've announced the immediate closure of payments for the 2026 Hajj pilgrimage. And if you go to the back page of the Ghanaian Times, Vice President confers with Cape Coast delegation on 8-year development plan to transform the Cape Coast metropolis.
So the Daily Guide this morning is talking about the president as well, speaking about the New Year school. Winston, I believe you were there, so you had some of the instructive messages from the president. He says he wants to build a nation to a point where you can't reverse the gains we've made. So that's captured on the front page of the Daily Guide this morning, saying that I'll deliver lasting economic reforms, and that's according to President John Dramani Mahama. Hold your peace.
You see, no, I just would say, make this point. Okay, I like what President Mahama said.
Yeah.
But this is it for me. I mean, part of the reason I say that in our part of the world, the challenge is this. So, in 2027, the NDC will be electing their flag bearer.
Are you sure about that? It could come earlier.
Well, if it comes earlier, that's 2026. But because they'll finish their national executive elections 2026, by 2027, end of year, they probably will be electing their flag bearer. Now, the moment they elect a flag bearer, everything about John Mahama, unfortunately, changes. Even before the election of a flag bearer, once they get into the second year, third year, they begin to think about the next election. So I am happy President Mahama is making this promise. Of course, we would assess him based on what he has said. And we would want the finance minister to continue as he has started and not let the election expenditure change things. If it does, I'm sorry, we'll go back.
Probably what I may want to say on that is, if I were President Mahama now, you would want to speed up the constitutional review process and to sever the ties between Parliament and the executive so that you have absolute control when it comes to that point. Even before 2026, you should be able to roll out the law where you can't be a member of Parliament and at the same time a Minister of State. When you do that, you have absolute control over your ministers, and if you still want to be in my government, quote unquote, then of course you have to play a game with the president. It's as simple as that.
We had a conversation about this. The Constitutional Review Committee's recommendations are to be implemented by the next administration.
Yeah.
So yes, it would be a great advantage to John Mahama if he could do that. But I suspect he doesn't have that option.
Well, you never know. I mean, you could pick and choose. That's my point. Actually, you can pick and choose because there's.
You mean pick and choose which recommendations to?
Because now
implement?
they have Winston. Now they have absolute majority in Parliament. They could trigger any form of reform, even before implementing. In detail, whatever it is that the Constitutional Review Committee is recommending.
I will tell you
so
one thing.
if you want to push that and want to still control your government, all you do is to reform the law.
I'll tell you one thing.
You have some.
So many of, so these recommendations will start from, like Kojo is saying, the next. If he wants to further, I tell you one thing. There's a reason why it starts from the next administration.
I get that.
Because even members of Parliament today, who should play a major role in the passage of that, would not. Because they are beneficiaries of the current system.
Precisely.
But my point is, if you do it now, you have a bigger advantage, because now the whip system will force you to implement whatever it is that the president wants to enforce. So you do it earlier, knowing that of course the political success of all these individuals are tied to their appointments, and then once you get that absolute control over your government, you roll it out before even the constitutional reform.
Let's continue.
Anyway. But still on the front page of the Daily Guide, you find the whole banter between Felix Kwatio-Fosu and the former Attorney General, Godfred Yeboah-Dame. It looks like there's an RTI request that is now pointing out that as far back as 2025, looks like there was some work on the docket of the former... Oh, no, he's currently the Ashanti Regional Chairperson of the NPP, Chairman Wontumi. So it appears that indeed, and we're saying that it's based on the response from the current Attorney General himself, indicating that something was done previously by the Ghana Police Service.
Wait, when you say previously, when is previously?
I mean, this was done in 2025. The docket was ready as of 2025, according to the RTI report.
So that's kind of currently, isn't it? Not previously.
So I'm speaking to what was done before now. So it's being confirmed that indeed some efforts were underway. As far back as 2025. Yeah, that should be currently, as you're saying.
2025 is currently, not previously.
Yeah. But some work was done during, the time of Godfred.
Okay, so let's get into other stories.
If you go to the Economic Times, Mahama confident in 2026 expansion as IMF cautions on bond market return. Economic activity resumes in full for 2026 after end of 2025 festivities, and gold boom, diaspora inflows propel Ghana cedi to historic year-end rally, shattering 3 decades seasonal volatility. The sad story of the demise of the founder of the Economic Times is also on the front page. Our colleague Elom Desewu, he was 48 years, and his funeral is going to happen on the 10th of January 2026. That's this weekend.
I didn't hear that. He was so resting.
He died on the 24th. Last week.
No, 24th is last 2 weeks.
When we were in the studio. We're in the studio when the news came.
Oh. May his soul rest in peace. The bit about gold boom and all, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Esiama, yesterday has talked about how we have achieved that stability, that stabilization we talk about, even the gold for reserves program at a cost. And he believes that going forward we'll be able to deal with this. I'd want to know the cost at which we achieved that. But that's
$214 million, Anna.
Well, I am waiting for audited reports. But based on the IMF document, we have lost $214 million. And so the IMF document, you can make reference to the IMF document, because the IMF document is based on the Fifth Review, and that's something that the IMF gathered from leaders. So that's it. You can make that. You can make that analysis and say, so far there's been a loss of $214 million as part of the domestic gold purchase program.
A cost that we really ought to consider how to reduce.
Here we go.
Asked the question earlier this week. Could we have avoided this cost, or can we reduce that cost? I believe we should certainly be thinking of reducing it. I talked about how the current rate at which we buy the gold is so different from the interbank rate. And if we can close that gap, if the Bank of Ghana can bring in policies to close the gap between the market rate or the forex rate and the interbank rate, that will make a saving. when it comes to
Because it
trading
appears
gold.
all that matters to you is about FX and how it's...
No,
yeah,
it has a big effect.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not all that matters. There are other factors here, but that's the big one, right? If
For
we
you.
can fix the big one,
For
we'll
you.
see a big difference, right?
For you?
Oh no, I think
Well,
the evidence bears it out that it's a big one. Yeah.
Market intermediation is not a bad thing. So now we can do market intermediation. But going forward, we cannot do that forever. At some point, because the boom we experience in commodity prices may not be forever, may not. So what do you do? And it's only in Ghana that, the things that we can do to help our economy are things that we say becomes recall, but we never do them. Because we know what we must do. And if we know what we must do, this whole conversation about import substitution, see, it saddens me that you've had today the Statistical Service of the Republic of Ghana actually shares with government, shares with all of us things that we need to, focus policy on. So, what is driving your inflation? If your inflation is mainly imported, it means that there are certain things that people are buying outside the country. Can you actually produce that locally here? How do you assist people? And at what rate can people sell them?
Yeah.
These are conversations we must have. And once, the data is pointing to these things, I don't know the difficulty. I don't know the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some years ago, we're talking about how tomato, for instance, was a huge contributor to inflation.
Yep.
Sometimes over 80%, 100% rate of inflation. But that's because you're importing tomatoes. So what do you do? What do you do? One of the first things of genetic engineering, I'm not talking about genetic modification, genetic engineering, was cassava from the north and south.
Yeah.
The cassava from the north grew quickly.
Yeah.
However, had certain toxic elements in there. So they had to genetically engineer them to pick things from the south and the north and produce cassava, which could grow in less than 9 months. Why? What's our problem? Why can't we do that for the tomato? Because today, if you go to the market, they say Navrungo and Burkina tomato.
Yeah.
Why can't we do same?
And when it comes to something like tomatoes and agric, it's not just about yields. It's about post-harvest processes, storage, and related matters. And I always argue that Ghana produces enough tomatoes as we need. Okay? Just that over 50% is lost through bad post-harvest and processing system. So if we did better in that particular space, we could actually save ourselves from the global tomato cartel, and reduce the inflation caused by tomato. Now, maybe, Winston, later let's look at commodity trading in general, including gold, and how come, for example, if you are trading a commodity like cashew, you have micro aggregators who go and aggregate from the farmers. Then the mega aggregator would aggregate from at every point somebody puts a margin on it, right? And the final seller sells it and also gets a margin and makes money. How is it that in aggregating gold for the BOG, the process is such that, and the system is such that the BOG ends up losing money? You're aggregating something to sell on the world market. How do we set up a system which causes us to lose money? The private sector players who used to aggregate gold and sell on the world market before we had the gold board and before we had this new policy, were they making these losses? Mahama marks 1 year in office with National Thanksgiving service at Jubilee House. This is my Joy Online. Joy News is also launching the Rose of Peril on January 8 to expose dangers lurking on Ghana's roads. That's presented by Pearl Ofori. Government can pay Austin Gami backs nurses and midwife salary claims, and GRE says that VAT cut is putting 6.5 billion Ghana cedis back in shoppers' pockets.
How much?
6.5 billion Ghana cedis back in shoppers' pockets as prices fall. This is GRE. Now, money still decides primaries, and that reality isn't changing soon. CDD fellow Osai Kwapon is speaking, and there's an interesting story here I want to share with you. Expert cautions campaigns and training alone won't attract youth to agriculture. And there's also a story that suggests that our remittances from the UK have dropped from about 28% to 17.5% between 2024 and 2025. And Wiala to be enskin paramount queen mother of Funsi.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, yes, a very good one
Congratulations
for
to
the
her.
area. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let me say good morning to Professor Lord Mensah. He says we allow nature to take its course when it comes to the bald head.